So basically, before I start, I just want to say that nothing traumatic has happened to me in my past. I didn't grow up abused. My parents are still together to this day. No dramatic divorces, no alcoholic parents, anything like that. I had a pretty normal childhood. Nothing, like I said, nothing bad happened to me. But with that being said, like, those kind of traumatic situations don't need to happen in order to go through things like depression, anxiety, cutting, self-harming. So nothing really happened until I started junior high. Junior high is kind of when I feel like everyone, especially girls, start to take in consideration a little bit more about how we look and what people think of us, especially boys and people we're interested in, and it matters on how many friends you have. Some people, that stuff doesn't matter, but to me, in junior high, that stuff started to matter. My first year of junior high, which is 6th grade. I was just all about having friends. I didn't care if it meant that I had to, wear a little bit more makeup or be a little bit more mischievous, or if it looked cool when I talked back to the teacher, I would do it. And I just had that kind of attitude where no one could get in my way, but really inside I was very broken. I just started to be more cautious about how I looked, my weight. I just looked at myself a little bit more carefully than I did before. Was just really hard on myself, and when I didn't look the way I wanted to look, or if me and this guy broke up, or if I lost a friend, or there was drama going on at school, I'd go home and I'd just be really depressed. Didn't really know why I was so sad. And sooner or later that year, that kind of led to a little bit of self-harm and cutting. So 7th grade year, everything kind of just chilled out. It was just kind of normal. I wasn't really hurting myself anymore. I wasn't, I would get depressed every now and then like most normal people do, but it wasn't constant. It wasn't that big of a deal. But coming into 8th grade year, I started dating again, and I started, talking to more like high school age guys, which is a whole another ball game. Like, they're expecting so many more things that you didn't even think of in middle school and elementary school, or at least I didn't. It was very intense and it's very scary. So with all that and starting to like lose my friends and stuff, transferring to high school, I got very, very, very depressed. And with that came anxiety. And when I say depressed, I mean like I was crying uncontrollably every night for hours at a time. I wasn't really getting any sleep. I would cry in the shower when no one could hear me. I was like literally crying out when I was crying at night. Like, just, I didn't understand why it was happening to me. And then finally, with the anxiety, my anxiety got to the point where I could not even leave my room. Every time I'd go to school, I would either just hang out in my counselor's office all day, or I would be in a bathroom stall just crying my eyes out because I was so anxious and I just couldn't take it. And some people always say, like, what is so scary? Like, what are you so scared of? But it's not about being scared of something, it's just this feeling you can't control, and that's what was so hard to explain to people around me, family and friends that have never experienced anxiety. You cannot explain it. At this point, I had to reach out to my parents and say, like, they had no idea any of this was going on. I had to reach out to them and say, like, I need help. This is getting out of control. Like, I took that step to get help, and if I can honestly say, if I did not ask for help, I probably would not be here today. And right away, we started getting help, and we went to the doctor as a family, and the doctor asked me, like, do you think about suicide? And I'm like, yeah, I think about it almost every day. And so immediately he said, you need to get out of school and placed into a rehabilitation or a behavioral hospital. That's what it was called. I was in a hospital for about a week, and I can honestly say that was the worst experience of my life. All they did was sedate me and drug me up and I was literally just a zombie, just sitting there with no emotion. Honestly, I wish I would have gotten help a lot sooner than this, because the hospital just made me worse, honestly. Also, I didn't say this before, but I was also struggling with an eating disorder. I wasn't making myself throw up or taking pills or laxatives or anything. I just wouldn't eat. I would tell my parents that I ate and I wouldn't eat, or I would just say, oh no, I ate earlier, I'm not hungry. My weight was just like, it was just bad. Like I looked very sick and very gross. Anxiety, depression, eating disorder. I was self-harming again, but this time it was more intense, and I was doing it in places that no one would ever see. But in the midst of all this, I was going to church. I was with my parents going to church, but I never thought about, calling out to God. It was just never, it was more of that resentment phase where I'm just like, you're putting me through this, so I'm just gonna sit here and act like I care what, the pastor is saying. But then finally it got to the point, especially after the hospital, when that didn't help at all. I just started, when I would cry at night and yell out, I would start calling out to God and just being like, please, like, why is this happening to me? Like, I'll do anything, I'll dedicate my life to you. And it's kind of like what most people do when they're in crazy situations. But I didn't know what my purpose was, and I started getting more active in church. And I remember a bishop that was visiting our church. He prophesied over me and basically told me that I was called to worship. And I had always loved singing ever since I was little, but I didn't ever think anything of it. But I just remember Rebecca, hi Rebecca, she actually kind of just randomly, I don't remember much from those years ago, that's why this is kind of all over the place, but I just remembered, her trying to get me involved in the youth band and kind of head up the youth band, because they didn't have one at the time. And so it was very scary at first, because my anxiety was still so bad. I would still have to, go in the bathroom during service and just sit there for 20-30 minutes. But now, I'm taking a step and I'm actually going on the stage and singing. And, eventually it started getting better and better. My anxiety started getting better. I started going back to school, because during that time I was taken out of school. I was homeschooled because I could not go to school. So things were just gradually getting better and better, and I never thought, oh, it's because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Finally, after everything, I put my faith in him, and thankfully it wasn't too late. It's been 6 years, and the only thing I do struggle with still is anxiety, which I think for everyone who has anxiety, it's always going to be there. I'm not on any medication. Those few years ago when they drugged me up on stuff, I was taking like 6 or 7 medications every day at one time. And throughout the years, like, I've just been eliminating them one by one, and now I'm on 0 medication. Still, my anxiety, I have anxiety every time I'm on stage, and people always tell me, like, you can never tell you're having anxiety or an anxiety attack. But I just have gotten to the point where I'm not going to let it ruin me and what I'm called to do. I'm specifically called to praise and worship and to lead others younger and older than me or my same age, and I'm doing that now. I'm doing that in the youth. I'm doing that in the main service. I'm doing that in a college ministry at another church. I'm getting asked, to sing at other places and singing around Corpus, and I never would have thought I would have been doing that today. But I also changed my mentality. I was no longer going to be the victim. I was no longer going to let the devil and what he's doing overtake me and make me think I'd rather die. I changed my victim mentality, which I think so many people struggle with today, because things that have happened like years ago, they're still playing that victim mentality, and I decided to change that. I didn't want to be the victim of anxiety, depression, self-harm, eating disorder. I didn't want to be the victim of those things anymore. I've met so many people during this process, and those few years ago, I didn't even have my best friend that I grew up with. She left me and was not in my life anymore because I was just too crazy. And so it's just basically, I just put my trust in God. I believed when he said that I was meant to worship, and I put all my effort in worship and the ministries and the word, and it's taken a long time to get where I am today. Like I said, almost 6 years. But I immediately started getting better whenever I made that decision. So don't be expecting to wake up the next day and just be a whole new person, totally happy. Nothing makes me sad, nothing makes me mad. I'm not anxious about anything, because 6 years later I'm still anxious about everything. And I'm doing things, and I'm not letting that ruin me. I'm not running off stage when I'm having an anxiety attack. I am striving to get my medical degree to become a doctor. Like, I never would have thought I could do those things 6 years ago. Just turn off the victim mentality and put your faith in God, and don't expect an immediate 360 drastic change. It's gonna be, a process, and it's gonna be a journey. But I promise you, it is so worth it, and I've never been happier and never been more satisfied with my life and myself and my relationship with God than I am today.